For parents that are new and who are wanting to support their child, I always say, it may not be technically correct, but I always say to parents, put on a happy face, because children are very quick to pick up on if you're feeling sad or cross or teary since they told you that they're LGBT. And so I always suggest, try and do your best to look like that you're okay with it, even if you're struggling, because eventually you will stop struggling and you will be fine. But meantime, you don't want your child feeling that you're upset, you don't care about them, or you're struggling, because if it looks easy for you, then your child generally relaxes much sooner, settles, and becomes more open and back to normal, to what you would call normal. And I also encourage parents that if they're concerned about their friends who they're mixing with, whatever, encourage them to bring their friends home. Don't keep them at arm's length. And don't believe that if you encourage their friends home, that it's going to make them more LGBT, because it's not. They have these friends because that's what they are, and they have friends to be the same as them. And again, it's just okay, and talk, ask questions and listen, but don't judge. So if a child is telling you something that you're a little bit concerned about, just go, oh, okay. Don't go, do you really think that's wise? Because if you do, the child will stop talking to you. And so you just need to let stuff pass, and then later, if you want to, either do a bit of reading yourself to see what the child's saying and is that okay or usual or typical, or then bring the subject up later, but not when you're asking questions and trying to find out how your child is travelling or what they're doing and such. And I have found personally, and that's all I can say personally, is that has worked very well. And when I've talked to other parents about it and they've done the same, it has worked well. Because again, it used to be that parents always thought that once their child came out, they went into this mystical world and they were never found again, or that they just lost their morals and their family values and such. And that's not true. They still have them. And also too, I find what's interesting is if you've got a child that's say 17 or 18 and they come out to you, people assume that if they're doing stupid things, or that it's because they're LGBT, but it's not. It's because they're 17 or 18 and they're doing what 17 and 18-year-olds do, which is generally stupid. That's in un-PC terms. But you know what I mean? They're just being themselves. And again, it's a case of your child, this is the normal now for your child, so it will soon become your normal. And so you just go with it. And if people say something like, oh, do you think that's all right? You go, yes, it is. And you just go. And you will soon find that everything goes back into balance. I would most definitely say that sexuality and gender are not a phase. And again, it's even like with small children. If you've got a small child and he's telling you, for example, that there's this one particular child that I'm talking about, and he used to say to his mum, why do you call me Bill? My name's not Bill, my name's Lucy. And he did that all the time. And he would always go and look for girl clothes and he would put them on. And he'd kept saying to his mother, my name is Lucy, you hurt my feelings when you call me Bill. And he did this for a couple of years. And so then the mother came and she said to me about it. And she said, what do you think I should do? And he was like 4 or 5. And I said, look, if he wants girl things, let him. go and buy him some little girl undies and see how it goes. And so they did. Oh, and he was in heaven. And so then what they did, they then let him dress as a girl, and they called him Lucy, or her Lucy then, and she was fine. But the thing is too, people think that if with a little one, they don't know. But of course they know. They may not know if they're straight or gay, but they know if they're a boy or a girl. And the theory is that if you let the child be themselves, there is so much less harm done than if you insist to this child, for example, Bill, that he's a boy. And then that's where the mental health issues come in and the behavioural issues. And then, of course, if the child decides later, oh no, I'm not Lucy, I'm Bill, he will just go back and no harm done. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, because they think, no, this can't be right. I will insist that he plays with trucks, and I will insist. And it just does so much damage. And I have had parents say to me, oh, it's just a phase because he's just started uni and it's trendy. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? How can that be trendy? It's not trendy when you know that your parents are going to be disappointed, or the possibility, or you feel that your parents are going to throw you out of the home. That's not trendy. And I want to know any male, for example, who just for a trend is going to go out regularly in a dress and a bra and a wig and makeup. They're not. They're only going to do that if they're absolutely serious and absolutely compelled to do that. And that's where I think parents need to understand. And it's not about the parent, it's about the child, and it's how you can support your child and do the best for it. And I think that's what's extremely important. And again, at the school, it's none of their business about that. It's the parents' business and it's the child's business. I think the main concern that parents need to be aware of, to me personally, would be the mental health issues, because from them it just becomes so much. Because from mental health issues or depression, grades drop, there's suicidal ideation, truancy, you name it. But if you can keep the child's mental health healthy, if that's a way to put it, you will have minimum issues. And the best way to do that is to show support, talk to the child. Don't talk to him or her any differently than what you did before. You have the same expectations, you have the same rules. And you give them the hugs that you would normally. You tell them that you love them like you would normally. And maybe if the child is feeling a little distant, you might need to do a little bit more of that. Or if the child is in their bedroom, go and sit and talk to them and find out what they're thinking, what they're reading. Just be there. Just listen to them. Don't judge. Don't say they're being stupid for feeling this way. Don't say this is what you should be doing. Don't say you should be hiding. Let the child pretty much guide, or if you feel that the child is holding back too much, which a lot do because of their internalized homophobia, they're so terrified of the reaction, well then you inch them out and you sit with them and you talk. When they're talking to people, you sit with them, or you make positive comments like, oh, guess what? We're not going to have a daughter-in-law, we're going to have a son-in-law, and this will be lovely because I'll have 2 sons. You know, that sort of stuff. Not like, because that is bad and it sends a dreadful message. What's important for parents of trans children is, I do believe that is harder. But I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's harder, it's different. Because if you have a gay child, the child goes out Fred and comes back Fred, always. But when the child is trans, it goes out Fred one day and it will come back Frida, and people will notice. And so what is important there, and it takes strength, and sometimes it takes false bravado, but you need to stand with that child. You need to stand and say, this is fine, this is my child. If you have a problem, it's yours. It is not my child, it is not my problem. And that's what happens. And what we find too, with a lot of parents that do have trans children, they just need support. They need to understand. They need to know what's going on and what to expect. And so if they can get that information, and if they know they're not alone, which of course they're not, there are so many trans people in this world, but of course we never know one. We always think our child is the only trans child, or we think our child is the only gay child in the village. And so you need to seek support, you need to get on the internet and look. And you only look at the positive sites. And if you see a negative, just get rid of it, because this is your child and they're your priority, and you need to keep them as safe. Also too, I always think that with your child, to help them, you know, if your child's transitioned to female, ask if they'd like you to go shopping with them and pick them clothes and get their hair done. But always, I always say, find a trans-friendly hairdresser and you ring up ahead of time, or a trans-friendly dentist or anything. Check to make sure before your child goes along, because you do not want your child insulted or any of that. So dignity and respect is always the main thing. And I have helped, I mean, I don't have a trans child, but I have helped trans people, and that's what I've done. I've always gone along, helped them pick clothes, hair, the makeup and whatever. But you don't push them further than they want to go. And they just always need to be comfortable in the situation. And then of course with some trans people, when they're older, they may not want you involved with their doctors and medication, but then others may be. And so you check and you do what your child wants. And again, you just ask questions. How are you going? How's the medication? How are you feeling? And again, it's always positive and it's caring. Never be judgmental, because you will lose and they will lose. No one becomes the winner there. So I just think, you know, it's always easy steps, simple steps, gently. But the main thing is you have to let your children know you love them, you care about them, and they are not less than, you know, because they're either trans or lesbian or gay or whatever. They're exactly the same as they were before they told you. I would not send my child, if it was trans, or even if I knew that child was gay at a young age, I would not just send it to a school. I would check and see if that school that I had in mind was friendly, going to be supportive, and if they're going to be supportive, how will they be supportive? And what is their rules? What is their policy? And you need to feel comfortable, because again, then if things go pear-shaped, you can go back to that school and you can say, you told me, whatever, not go in, you know, blank and not knowing what's happening. I think for parents, being involved in community is great. First of all, it shows your child that you are supportive and you want to be with them and part of their community. And I think that's extremely important. But also what it does, you meet other parents and you realise very quickly that you are not on your own. And also too, you meet a lot of other LGBT people. And I must say personally, I have a great range of friends in the community, and genuine friends. And and it broadens your horizon. It takes you out of that little bubble that people live in. And I just think you benefit 100%. You cannot lose. And so I would highly recommend going to the like Pride Fair Day if you're in Brisbane, or the Big Gay Day or something like that. Even going to Mardi Gras and marching in the PFLAG groups. That the kids love it when they know mum and dad are in the parade, mum's down at Mardi Gras, whatever. And so I just think it's the best thing ever. I highly recommend that.